This episode is brought to you by Act Now Education. Go to www.actnoweducation.com for free comprehensive educational resources and opportunities for active duty, veterans, military spouses, and children.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, I got shot my fourth day in Iraq. The next 12 months were an absolute shit show. And then my roommate got killed 2 weeks before we redeployed CONUS. So it was like the deployment that started from hell and it then ended exactly that way.
Welcome to the show, folks. Today, we're very fortunate to have a guest on the show who continues to serve his military community through his strength of comedy and meaningful motivation. He was part of the GIs of comedy and is currently the director of media and artist relations at the Laugh Factory in Los Angeles. Our guest today is Mr. Thom Tran, who is not only an Army combat veteran, but is also a professional broadcast journalist, a professional comedian, actor, and a musician. Thom was a non-commissioned officer in the United States Army, served a total of 8 years with a deployment in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003, where he received a Purple Heart. Thom, I want to thank you for joining us today.
That is an impressive intro. And I was like, who is he talking about? I was like, oh yeah, that's me. I forgot I did that shit. That's cool. How are you?
Great, man. Great. It's great to have you on the show. I was trying to link up with you, so I'm glad that I know you have an extremely busy schedule. So I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, sorry, man. This week has been like the last 2 weeks has been intense. Right. So you met my boy Jordan over at Guitar Center?
Yeah, I think that was him. I was over there when I first started out with the podcasting thing. You know, I didn't know what I was doing, and I was over there asking all kinds of questions. And man, he was the nicest guy that helped me out with it and gave me so much information. And he mentioned, you know, what's this for? And I told him, and he's like, oh, I have a really good friend named Tom. And I'm like, oh, so then I started looking at on YouTube and Instagram, and I'm like, wow, I got to reach out to this guy.
Jordan's my homie. He used to be the manager over at Guitar Center in Sherman Oaks. And the day he left, I got a cake for him at Ralph's. And I told the people to write, "Don't leave me" on the cake. Yeah. Jordan's fantastic. I probably put his kids through school with all the crap that I've bought from Guitar Center.
That guy is a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, he's a good cat.
I wanted to start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself, your family, and where you're from originally.
I grew up a small black child in Washington, D.C. It's funny because I'm not black. I grew up in Buffalo, New York. My family came to the United States in 1979 after my father escaped from a prisoner of war camp in Vietnam, which makes me Vietnamese. Settled in Buffalo, grew up the only Asian kid that I knew outside of my family. Played guitar in rock bands. Got in trouble because I was in rock bands. Got thrown out of high school. I went to a different high school because I was a bit of punk, but it was mid 90s, whatever. Decided to not be a punk anymore. Joined the Army in 97, right after I turned 18. Almost joined right before I turned 18. I actually went to see the recruiter when I was 17, but my mom freaked out because my dad was a POW in Nam. She's like, "Why are you doing this?" And I was like, "Because I gotta." So my recruiter was like, "Hey, man, in 3 weeks, you can't do anything. You turn 18. You just sign the paperwork. It doesn't matter." So yeah, I enlisted right after I turned 18 in February of 97. Pissed off my mom to no end. Dad was cool with it, I guess. I mean, Dad was, he's a combat vet, POW in Nam. So he didn't want me joining the military, but he wasn't going to stop me. My dad found out somewhere in my mid-teens where he's like, I'm not going to stop him from doing shit. He's just going to do it. He never pushed me in any direction to do anything. Like, he did say, go do this, go do that. But he was always supportive. He was like, you want to play guitar? I'll buy you a guitar. You want to, chase this girl? I will buy flowers, help you buy flowers and take it over to her house for her birthday, whatever. Do you want to join the Army? I'll take you to MEPS. Which he didn't. My recruiter took me to MEPS, but yeah. So I joined the Army, 18, Signal, went in the Army commo because I watched Good Morning Vietnam, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to be Adrian Cronauer. I want to be Robin Williams. And my sneaky ass recruiter, I feel like those are words that everybody puts together.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, we don't have that job available. Like the MOS was, it was locked up. There weren't any slots available. So, I didn't know shit about the Army. And, G.I. Joe and Transformers growing up. So he was like, we have a radio job in a special operations unit. And I didn't know what that meant. And I was like, cool. So in my head, I'm jumping out of planes, like playing AC/DC for the 11 Bravos, like fucking on the way down. And it was not that. It definitely was not that. I was not an AFN guy. I was a signal weenie, wire dog, the small unit tactical signal operations NCO. Yeah, deployed to Iraq in 2003, got shot. Day 4, stayed all 12 months.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So, would you mind taking us back to your deployment and what happened the day that that you received your combat injury?
Sure. Yeah. So, we rolled across the border from Kuwait into Iraq, I think 29 March 2003. So about a week after the war had started. The rest of my unit had already been chopped out to other units. Some guys went with the Brits. Some guys went with 82nd. Some guys went with Marines. So we got chopped out in teams. And my team got chopped out to 5th Group up in Al-Nasiriyah. So we get up to Talil Air Base, and they were still bagging and tagging EPWs like as we were rolling up. So we were literally setting up camp as they're clearing out this airbase. And Talil Air Base was right outside of Al-Nasiriyah, which, if anybody remembers, was a city where Jessica Lynch was taken prisoner of war in the first days of the war. So we get in, and we have to drive up into Al-Nasiriyah to take over the AO. And they had rescued Jessica Lynch on April 1st, 2003. So this is like 2 days after we arrive at Talil, the soft unit that got her out. They were leaving the AO. They got to show us around. We're brand new into the area, and we got to take over some of the CA operations. So they're literally driving us around. We're in a convoy, and we start driving down along the river. And I have this on video, so I remember it pretty clearly because I watch it. My interpreter goes, "This is a really bad place. This is the headquarters of the Ba'ath." And I'm like, well, fuck. And then immediately on the video, you hear gunfire. I'm like, God, in my head, I'm like, God damn it. This is like day 1. First mission outside the wire. And we roll into a gunfight. And so we're rolling into a gunfight. Is a kill box. It's infantry do not do 101. It's like, you drive into a gunfight. What do? You fucking drive out of that gunfight. Get out any way you can. But it was like the river to our left, buildings like 5 feet to our right, and a burning pile of tires to our front. And we're in a convoy with like gun trucks, some OGAs, some foreign internal defense guys. And we stop. Again, classic infantry do not do 101. Convoy stops as the ODA commander is trying to assess the situation. And while we're stopped, I got popped in the back of the head because I was driving the Humvee because it was like my colonel, major, interpreter. So I'm an E6. I'm like the lowest ranking person in the truck. Mm-hmm. So I'm driving. The ODAs try to figure out what's going on. We're stopped. I mean, it is like everything in my head's gone. This is bad. And then I got popped back of the head. And no, I was not wearing my helmet because we were out with the ODA. They do things different. And I grew up in SOCOM, and I was just like, even my battalion commander that day was like, "Hey, you're going out to play with the ODA guys." So,
Well, and this was in 2003. So I deployed in 2004, at the end of 2004. And what a lot of folks may not realize, in 2003, you didn't have the level 3 Tardak armor. You had sandbags on the floor, and you had what was called ghetto metal on the sides of your vehicle. Because
we had interceptor armor, like that bullshit interceptor armor that was kind of useless.
Yeah, I did that for about a month. We're just doing convoys outside the wire, and we had sandbags and the ghetto metal, just steel that the soldiers would put on the side of the vehicles for protection. And fortunately, we were able to get the level 3 armor at the end of 2004. But that, man, I could not imagine going through a firefight with nothing, basically.
Yep. A couple of the Humvees had fabric doors on them. Or like,
wow.
Yeah. SOCOM, we do things right.
Kind of like you're back here in garrison and training with your mesh fabric covered doors and everything. Probably. Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah. We don't go to war with the army we want. We go to war with the army.
I am very familiar with that. Bullshit. Very familiar with that quote. Very familiar with that
Mhm.
quote because that happened when I was actually in Iraq. Donald Rumsfeld had said that, and that soldier that stood up, man, I often wonder whatever happened to him because
So do I. I think about him all the time.
he saved countless lives by bringing that up because there was a huge push at the end of 2004.
Yep.
It became mandatory that you could not leave outside the wire unless you had level 3 armor. And I couldn't imagine being in your situation where, I had driven through several firefights, but I had level 3 armor. I couldn't imagine what it must have been like for you going through that. This happened during the day.
Middle of the day. We had white Toyota pickup trucks loaded with foreign internal defense guys, a couple of ODA gun trucks, a couple of just like regular Humvees, and I'm pretty sure some OGAs because I saw some black SUVs in our convoy. I'm like, who are those guys? And nobody ever told me.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, whatever, man. MIB, whatever. They're looking for fucking aliens. I don't care. Just keep them out of my way. That's cool. Fine, whatever.
Absolutely amazing that you were able to make it through that. Having been through it myself, I can't imagine what it must have been like for you. So I did see an interview where you talked about the bullet injury not actually bothering you until your college graduation party, which I believe was like months after returning from your deployment. And I find that so strange because I also experienced, similar feelings when I came back from my deployment. I have a piece of an IED. It's a rubber strip that has nails through it, and it actually stuck into my tire and it exploded a mortar round on the side of my Humvee. And the way the mortar was facing, it just so happened that the ground took the majority of the hit. I took all those things and I had just thrown them into a bin and closed it, and for years did not want to think about it or talk about it, those types of dangerous situations. And I felt like I couldn't move on with myself, and I just wanted to fit in with everyone else. So can you share a little bit about how you felt and what happened when those memories and thoughts hit you during that graduation party?
Well, yeah, man. I mean, I got shot my 4th day in Iraq. The next 12 months were an absolute shit show. And then my roommate got killed 2 weeks before we redeployed CONUS. So it was like the deployment that started from hell and it then ended exactly that way. And then I got home. I asked to go home on the Advon because I had an opportunity that never came to pass, but I had an opportunity to go work at Maxim magazine, but I had to finish college to do it because like most of us in the military, it took me a long time to get my college degree, like 8 years, pretty much my entire contract while I was in the Army. I was, taking a semester here, taking a semester there, trying to get my degree. By the time I graduated, the kids I was graduating with were like in the 8th grade when I, joined the Army. So anyway, long story short, I had the opportunity to go work for Maxim, but I had to graduate, and I had like 24 credit hours to graduate. I still had like another semester and a half, but I was like, hey, I told my command, look, let me get out of here. I'll go home early. I'll get the Advon ready. I will register for school, and then I will crank out this whatever 20 plus credit hours I got to do to graduate. So I got home. Well, we got back to the States. We were supposed to be at Bragg to out process, and we wound up at Fort Hood. Like I was on this Advon with me, my major, a couple other NCOs, and somehow we wound up in Fort Hood. I mean, I wasn't the flight NCO, so I don't fucking know. I was just like on the bus and I was like, just fucking get me home. So we get back and we're like, I said to my major, I'm like, what the fuck are we doing in Killeen? He goes, yeah, somebody fucked something up. I'm like, yeah, no shit. We're in Texas. We're supposed to be in fucking North Carolina. We're stuck in Killeen for a couple of days. We fucked off, obviously. And then we get back to Bragg. I helped the Advon party get ready for the rest of the battalion to come back. Then I out process and fucking unass and get back to Buffalo, New York, finish my degree. So I got back on a Thursday, and on Monday I was starting like 20 something credit hours. So think about that. I got home Thursday, and like maybe 96 hours later, like I had just come home from a war, a literal war. Yeah, I was back in the States for like a week or something, but I was, fucking bouncing around Fort Hood and then Fort Bragg trying to get my shit together. But then by the time I got home, in 4 days, I was in college. I had no time to process. Like I went from a war to 20 something credit hours of college. And then it was like that for that whole semester from January until May. I was home. I was going to school. I was working my radio job. I was trying to reintegrate with my family and my fiance at the time. And I still had friends downrange, our rotations overlap. So I had buddies who were still downrange for another 6-8 months, and I got shot. My roommate, like I said, my roommate got killed December 19th, 2003, like 3 weeks before we came home. So all that shit sat and festered with me while I'm in school, taking nearly twice the amount of credit hours that a normal person takes, while I'm also going to work, working on my career, working on my relationship. I had a niece that was born right before I deployed that I am, trying to integrate myself into her tiny little life. Then I graduated. Graduation day, I was actually just looking at the photos the other day for some reason. I was going through my laptop. I had a party at my then fiance's house. And it's fine. We're opening presents, shit like that. And then I went out in the back and had a smoke. And that was the first time in 18 months that my op tempo was not fucking go, 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 go. Because from the moment I got my orders, that's 12 months boots on the ground. And then another 4, 5, 6 months of college nonstop. So my op tempo was maxed out for nearly 2 years. And I went outside at that graduation party. It was the first time I took a break and I had a smoke, and it just all came out. Like all the bullshit that was inside, all the stuff that I had to keep buried while I was downrange, all the stuff that I had to keep to myself so my soldiers didn't see me freaking out, all the stuff that I had to keep inside so I didn't lose it on my family or my fiance or whatever. All that shit just came out like that moment. Lit a cigarette and just fucking lost it. And that's when everything went downhill, because I was medically not cleared to be on a line unit anymore. I was working with the recruiters. There was an incident, and that's all I will say about it. But my command was like, you can't be here. You go ADSW with the recruiters. And in the meantime, I was like on the last year of my contract. So now I'm not organically with my unit. I am ADSW with the recruiters. I'm in college. I am trying to process this, last year that I had. And they never sent a retention NCO to me. They're just like, all right, medical, So now I'm not a soldier anymore. Medically, I can't, I get fucking night vision problems, memory loss, fucking migraines, all that shit, all the stuff that comes with getting shot in the head. And now I'm not in school anymore. And now I've finished college. And I was such a wreck that opportunity that I had to go work for that magazine, I just blew that off. I was like, I can't do this. It's like my relationship was ending. I was at the point I had nothing to give. I was like, I'm not a soldier anymore, not a student anymore. No, I'm not, in this relationship anymore. Barely knew my family, couldn't talk to them. Like we all have that problem. But even more so because like my family had moved back to my hometown, but they'd been gone, I'd been gone, then I deployed. So yeah, man, everything, I just lost it all that day. It just all came out. And that's when everything, it's when I put on the weight. It's when, it's not when I started drinking, but that's when the drinking went fucking way overboard. But yeah, there was a few years of that. Mm-hmm. I had a bit of a heart attack situation when I was 26. I went to the VA, and the doctor was like, hey man, when was the last time you smiled? It had to be like 2004, 2005 when this happened. It's like, when was the last time you smiled? And I was like, I don't know, fucking 2002, before the war started. My blood pressure was out of control. I was like 190 something pounds, 200 pounds. I think I maxed out at like 210. Like, put that in perspective. I'm 5'7" and 147 pounds right now, like 12% body fat. So same height, tack on 60 or 70 pounds. So super not healthy. You've seen the photos. I was in a real bad place. Started drinking again. Was in playing bands, like doing all the shit that I did before I joined the army. When I was 15 to 18 years old, drinking, smoking, playing in rock bands, just doing all that shit that 15 to 18-year-old kids do. I was doing it again, but I was 20, whatever, 25, 26.
Yeah, I think a lot of veterans can identify with exactly what you're saying. You come back and you really don't feel like you have anyone else to talk to. You've lost all your colleagues, everyone that had your six, everyone that you depended on and trusted, are taken away from you. And you crossed the finish line. You got your college degree, and you had that moment of silence and that moment to reflect on everything. And it just kind of hits you at once. A lot of veterans go through that. And I was just, I've personally had some issues with reintegrating and identifying with my own friends and family, after my deployment and my separation from the military. And for years, I often felt like I was misunderstood. So what are your thoughts of the concept with modern society viewing veterans reintegration as a societal problem due to homelessness, PTSD, just being broken or simply out of touch from society?
I'll put it to you like this. We talked about being nerds. I'm a big Star Trek nerd. There's an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where the Enterprise is asked to go to this planet. So the Enterprise D, Picard's Enterprise, is asked to go to this planet where they have to help capture a fugitive from a penal colony. And it turns out that this quote unquote penal colony is where this planet sent all of their combat soldiers, all the people that fought their wars. And it wasn't really a penal colony so much as like, hey, you fought our wars, we're going to give you this piece of land and on another planet that you can go, live on. And the idea of the episode was this planet didn't want to deal with the soldiers that they created. So yeah, you fought your war, here's your plot of land, go away and don't be a part of regular society anymore. And then the Enterprise had to decide what to do because like, oh no, this guy's not a fugitive. He was a war hero. And this entire planet doesn't know how to or want to deal with the people that they created to fight their wars. So it's not a new problem. This was a problem. This has been a problem for as long as wars have been fought. And it's not a us or them thing. It's people are selfish, period. People are selfish. It's not that they don't know how to deal with veterans. They don't know how to deal with anybody outside of their bubble. That's life. That's why there's racism. That's why there is sexism. That's why there is homophobia. People who don't know how to deal with somebody or something that's different from them, they're just going to push it aside. They're going to, with veterans, they're going to say, yeah, we want to help as much as possible. But look at the reality of it. Like 22 veterans a day kill themselves. There are 30,000 homeless veterans in Los Angeles. So, and it's not a society thing where it's like us versus them. It's not civilians versus the military or veterans or whatever. It is society not being able to look at ourselves in the mirror when it comes to difficult, uncomfortable situations, whether it's veteran homelessness or the oppression of others or racism or police brutality or whatever it is. We don't want to look at that in the mirror because it's fucking uncomfortable. And that's the problem. There's no, for me, the difference, there's no difference between, oh, I'm a veteran and that other group of people. Because I'm a veteran, I'm an Asian American, I'm an immigrant. Like you could break that shit down to its most atomic level. The problem is there are 8 billion people on the planet, and outside of your group of like 10 people that you know really well, you don't really want to know all these other fucking people. And then the internet makes you go, oh, I know all these people. I have 5,000 friends on Facebook. I don't have 5,000 friends. I got 3. And then I got 4,900 other motherfuckers that just met me one time. That's what it is. The world is so big and it's become so small. And we as these primates don't have the brain capacity to really deal with it, but we think we do. We think we're so super smart because you and I are talking to each other over a camera from a dozen miles away. You know, we think we're super smart. We're not. We're still pretty dumb as beings, which is why I can't wait for the Pentagon release of alien information to come out in June. And that's going to blow everybody's fucking minds when they go, oh shit, we're just dumb apes.
Yeah.
Also, I believe in aliens. So
no, man, it's amazing because we don't even know what's at the bottom of the ocean. And
right.
But yet
I don't even know what's in my closet right now.
And, you know, people think that, like you just mentioned, people think we're so far apart from each other, but we're really not. I think a lot of forces would like us to think that, but in reality, we're not too far apart from each other and, you know, in our way of thinking and how we treat each other. And at the same token, you're right. Like, we think that we're smarter than we really are. We really haven't explored all that much. And we really don't know as much as we think we know, even about ourselves and what's going on like up here in our own heads. So I understand what you're saying with that. And I was just curious to know, at what point did you decide to pursue a career in comedy and entertainment?
When I had a heart attack and the doctor was like, oh, hey man, you got to do something or you're going to die before you're 30. Because I was fat, overweight, an alcoholic, and I had nothing to live for. And comedy became my therapy. Comedy became the thing that was like, hey, you know, like I tell people all the time, when you hear a good joke, it's just a good joke. You know, you don't think about it.
Right.
You don't go, oh, why is that funny? I mean, some people do, but they're assholes. But like, yeah, man, comedy is just when I write a good joke, not gonna lie, I will fucking do that joke on stage and listen to it over and over and over and over again to hear the laughter that I created with that joke. Or just like I make myself laugh with, you know, if I write a good joke. And that's what it's about. Yeah, I enjoy doing it for other people, but man, I write a joke that makes me laugh. Yeah. That's less time I spend thinking about every other bullshit thing that runs through my head. You know, it's less time that I think about all the problems I came home with, all the problems I still live with, all the problems I'm still dealing with, all the shit that I see on the news or on Twitter or whatever. Like when I write a joke, it makes me forget for the whatever length of the joke. And if I'm on stage doing a show, hey, then those people get to forget for a half hour or 45 minutes or an hour, which is why I created the GIs of comedy. So that it occurred to me that if this is working for me, if this is helping me get over some of my combat trauma, well then, hey, I could do this for other Joes, you know, travel around the world. That was my goal, travel around the world and do stand-up for other troops so they could forget for a half hour or 90 minutes that, oh shit, we're in a combat zone. And we've done it in 23 countries, 40 something states. We've literally been to the North Pole, Thule Air Force Base in the North Pole, all the way down to Curacao in South America, Iraq a bunch of times, Afghanistan a bunch of times, a bunch of undisclosed locations all over Europe, Asia. Haven't been to Australia yet. That's the goal, for no other reason than I'd like Australia. But yeah, man, that's why I did comedy. It started off as like healing for me and therapy for me. And I was an NCO, man. The, accomplishment of my mission and the welfare of my soldiers will always be uppermost in my mind. That's the NCO. That's in the NCO creed. So I'm still an NCO. I'm still trying to take care of Joes. I just do it with a microphone instead of, fucking yelling at them to jump out of a plane. Yeah. So that's why I did comedy. It was my therapy. It was better than going to see the doctors at the VA or taking pills or taking whatever medications they were giving me. It was sure the fuck a lot better than booze. You've seen the pictures. It was not pretty when I just let go. It was like, the reason I started getting back in shape is I looked at a photo of myself in Mexico without a shirt on. I was like, that is unsat. Like that is not acceptable. The person I became was not acceptable. And I couldn't expect other Joes and other vets to take me seriously as an advocate if I'm like the fat piece of shit that's walking around just hammered all the time. That's why I'm in the gym an hour and a half a day, 2 hours a day. Sometimes there's still a standard that I have to live by if I'm going to be any kind of example.
Yeah.
Or I guess I could be a bad example, but I'm not trying to be, if I'm trying to be an advocate for other Joes.
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta represent.
I gotta represent.
Gotta represent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I do that with my comedy. And, part of it is to help, as the GIs of comedy has grown to what it has become, part of the mission is to build the bridge between the gap between, this imaginary gap, because it's imaginary. It's this imaginary gap between the military and civilians. We all laugh at the same shit. We have a little bit of a different language. We speak in acronyms. We'd like to think that we're different or better. We're the same. We're the same assholes. We just have different jobs. And most of us have the same jobs. I was a radio guy in the Army. I'm a radio guy now. Just tactically a little different. Healing is the number one priority with comedy. And two is, making sure everybody knows, hey, man, we're the fucking same. We all laugh at the same shit.
Yeah. Two things with that is you have a tremendous amount of self-awareness, which, I think military veterans need to think about that a lot. Being self-aware of where you're at in your own life and, are you happy with yourself, with what you see in the mirror? And you have a very, very good understanding of being self-aware. And then secondly, the comedy part, a lot of people don't understand the whole dark military humor sometimes that,
that's bullshit. That I have a dark sense of humor thing. That is, listen, I have aspiring veteran comedians coming to me constantly or like, people don't get our dark sense of humor. That is bullshit. Comedy is comedy. It's the extent to which you're willing to take an idea. Yeah, we are used to seeing violence and how we process it is different. But the idea that there's a dark sense of humor being the excuse to be an asshole. Like there are comics who weren't in the military who have a dark sense of humor, but they use it as an excuse to be mean, to be bullies, and to be assholes. That's not comedy. That's just like, that's using comedy as an excuse to be a piece of shit. That's how I feel about it. Like you can be funny. I literally show a video of me getting shot in the head in Iraq, and it was my closing joke for 3 years. You don't get darker than a video of you coming centimeters away from having your head blown off. That's about as dark as it gets. But it's not dark humor, because that's not what the joke is about. Saying we have a dark sense of humor is an excuse to go, I'm really not good at comedy. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna say this thing that most people don't understand and don't get. Mm-hmm. And then when they don't laugh, go, well, you don't get my dark sense of humor. Then that's not comedy. That's you saying some dumb shit that you and your friends understand because you and your friends were in that situation. And I've told this to guys who want to do comedy, who come out of the military. 12%, 7 to 12% of the US population are veterans. Okay. 0.04% are on active duty or in the reserves. That's less than 0.5%. As a stand-up comedian, if I walked into a comedy club with a joke that made between 0.04 and 12% of that audience laugh, then I'm not a comedian. Then I'm just a dude with an inside joke. So as a professional comedian, the job is to go, here's this idea. How do I make it as funny as possible to as many people as possible? Because it's the business of comedy. Yes, you can be funny. It doesn't mean you're a comedian. And if you're only funny to your friends, then you're only funny to your friends. And then saying, well, this group of people doesn't get my dark sense of humor. That's a bullshit excuse to say you think you're funny with your friends. I can take a joke about being in Iraq or Afghanistan and make a room of 150 people in Hollywood where I am probably the only veteran in the room. I can make them laugh at that. That's comedy. And it could be a joke about me getting shot or me shitting myself in the middle of a gunfight, which happened. Knowing what funny is the difference between quote unquote dark humor that we have in the military and comedy, just regular comedy. Right. The idea of like this gallows humor, yes, on the battlefield and when we come home and as soldiers and service members, we do need to be able to process the horror and the atrocities of war. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And we use humor to do it. I get that. I, above all people, get that as a professional comedian and as a professional soldier. But then to tell civilians, oh, you don't get my dark sense of humor, and you're not properly conveying the message that you're getting through. I've done sets of 45 minutes of straight military humor to civilian audiences. Mm-hmm. And again, if I walked into a comedy club and I did a joke consistently that only made less than 0.5% to 12% of that audience laugh, I would never work in that comedy club again.
Right.
Because then that's not comedy.
Right.
That's just some funny shit that happened to you and your friends.
Right. Yeah. And that's actually really good advice because for folks that are looking to get into comedy, it sounds like you've heard other veteran comedians that have used that excuse to say, well, they just don't get my dark sense of humor. And
I hear that from regular civilian. I hear that from civilian comedians.
Yeah.
You know, it's, but yeah, I hear it a lot from aspiring veteran comics of like, yes, we have a dark sense of humor.
Yeah,
we do. But if you want to be a comedian,
right?
If you want to make a living doing this,
I guess what I was trying to say is like the actual processing of something that traumatic that happens. A lot of times military folks tend to find some type of humor, try to laugh it away or laugh it off, I guess. And I mean,
we have to.
Right.
The video of me getting shot, driving to the hospital, I am laughing about.
Right.
Bleeding from my head. Like on the day, in the moment, you have to find a way to process it.
Right.
Or else you're going to lose it. Like, well, how is it going to look if I rolled back to my talk freaking out,
right,
and I got a bunch of E2s and E3s going, oh shit, Sergeant Tran's losing his shit, as opposed to, hey guys, what's going on?
Right.
Heard a funny dick joke on my way back. Like, that's what we do. That's how we get through it. And no, civilians aren't going to get that.
Yeah.
But the job of a good comedian, military or civilian or otherwise, is to get the people in the room to understand that point of view.
I mean, it's an art, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
I mean, it's a process and it's an art. You can't just go out there and throw whatever your own little circle of friends would understand, but you have to make it relatable to, like you said, a good portion of the room to understand like what you're saying and, take them back to that moment and find some humor in it. If
I do a joke and consistently 5% of the room doesn't get it, well, then that 5% of the room is shit out of luck, because obviously the other 95% of the room understands how good the joke is. But yeah, I mean, but that's, the opposite of the other thing I said. You can't expect a story about, fucking a burn pit in Iraq that makes your 7 friends laugh because they were there and they know what you're talking about.
Right.
You could. It's possible. I've seen it done. I've seen that shit done.
But nobody's going to get it.
No. Like, I've seen comics take, like, one of my friends, very good friends, James P. Conley, Marine, former captain of the Marine Corps, tours on the GIs of comedy with me. Such a brilliant writer. And I've seen him tell jokes and stories about being in the Marines, shit that I don't know about because I wasn't in the Marines.
Right.
But I've seen him make an audience howl. That's good comedy. Being able to make the unrelatable completely relatable to the people you're talking.
That's some very good information, Tom, and I'm glad you shared that piece, because it is an art and it is a process, and it's not you just getting up there talking about your inside joke, but you have to like actually work it and create that magic so that everyone can understand what the hell you're talking about. So I'm glad that you got into that, because for folks out there that are listening, thinking about getting into comedy, and if you're a veteran, I mean, that is a great nugget of advice to be successful. You got to work it. It's not just can't just spew out whatever you and your friends talked about, but understand that who are you talking to? Who is your audience? Basically, it's simple, but it's something often overlooked. It sounds like.
Also, like understanding what is funny in whatever you're talking about. Like, yeah, you could tell a story about, okay, yeah, I used to tell the story about, okay, so long and short of it was I got food poisoning, I had dysentery, eating on the local economy in Iraq. We get assaulted in the middle of the night. I'm in the middle of a gunfight, just shitting my pants every time. Every time I pull the trigger, the recoil makes me shit my pants. Okay. It's a lot more in depth and a lot more funny than that. But what is like when I tell that story to a civilian audience, shit, when I tell that story to military audiences, what's the percentage of people who shit themselves during a gunfight? Pretty low. But that's not what's fun. Like the situation around it isn't what's funny. Like you have to find the actual funny in the story. You know what I mean? Like, what is it that's actually funny? Is it because you farted in Afghanistan, or is it a fart? You know, did the fart happen? If the fart happened at a Walmart in Rancho Cucamonga, is it going to be as funny as it was when it was in Afghanistan? If it's not, then that's not the funny of the story. Find the funny of the story. That's the thing. Like, yeah, you can put all the pieces together and make it as detailed as you want because that'll add to the funny. But like, get to the point of the funny. Like, if you can do the best thing for me is if I can tell a funny joke in 30 seconds and stretch it out to a 5-minute chunk of material because I'm adding a little flavor here, adding the details here that, you know, at the end of the day, it's that 30 seconds that's actually funny. And I think with comedy, you have to be a good storyteller to know what the funny is, and then build it around.
Yeah,
that.
We do a very good job with that. I've watched several of your videos on YouTube, and some of your jokes are extremely hilarious, and that's what I found, you know, very entertaining about the way you do comedy. And now that you are where you are in your career, looking back, how was your transition from being in the military to being a professional, multi-talented entertainer?
I hear no a lot in Hollywood. I mean, you do, you always do. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was like supposed to be on 2 different TV shows. And I only got one of them, which it's a boo-hoo on me. I got 1 TV show instead of 2, but being able to take your failures and being able to build upon them. I didn't make E5 my first selection, and I was heartbroken because I thought I worked really hard, and I did. But, you know, there's some shit that was out of my control. And, you know, I always think about that. I, sat down with my S1, who's a friend of mine. To this day, she's a friend of mine. You think about how much work you put into being a soldier, being a paratrooper, being an NCO, being whatever. And I channel that into my work now. You know, I'm up at 5 a.m. every morning. Some nights I don't get home till I didn't get home till 1 a.m. yesterday. And that's me being able to like look back at my life and my career as a soldier and go, you've had it way worse than this. Like, you got to go tell dick jokes in Hollywood. You know, it's not like that one gunfight in fucking Basra. Like it's, I have the stuff in the back of my head to go back and go, all right, look, things have been way worse. Yeah, suck it up, drink some coffee, rub some dirt on it, and you'll be fine. And fucking go to sleep later. I mean, being a paratrooper, I explain being a comedian. I say this all the time in interviews, but like being a comedian is a lot like being a paratrooper. Like when I step on stage with a new joke and I don't know if that joke's going to work, like if it's the first time I'm going on stage with it, it's just like jumping out of an airplane. I've done it before. I've done it a lot. I trust that I can do it because I do it, you know, but what if this one time the rigger didn't pack my chute right? You know, that's me going, what if this one time this joke doesn't work? And I got to trust in myself as a comedian, just like I trust in myself as being a soldier and a paratrooper. Even if the chute doesn't work, you fucking grab that reserve, you pull the pin, you start slapping away, and you like shift gears to the skills that you already know you have to get yourself out of that situation. So it's very much a lot of my career. I attribute back to being in the military, and a lot of the skills that I learned in being in the military, you know, like I'll get on stage with a joke that I think is fantastic and it'll eat shit. And then I'm like, oh, fucking start slapping that reserve. And like, I'm going to pull another joke out of my out of my holster, something I know works for sure.
A lot of adaptability, which is something we do a lot in the military.
Yeah. Yeah. Adapt and overcome. Every time I get on stage, every audience is different.
Mm-hmm.
Every night is different. I am different every night. How long did I sleep last night? How much did I have to eat tonight? Do I feel sick? Do I have food poisoning? Did I drink enough water? Am I fighting with my girlfriend? Like, every situation is different. So it's like we say in the Army, plans are great until the bullets start flying. Then none of that shit matters. Get on stage and it is different every night with a different audience and a different vibe. Dude, I've had shows that were different show to show. Like 8 p.m., killer. 10 p.m., I question my life and my career choices. Same night, same club, different audience, different vibe, different, I had one extra, shot in my espresso before I got on stage. And that's starting to wear, it's like you adapt and overcome. That's the number one thing I got from my career being in the military and how it's helped me here in Hollywood.
Yeah, you're very resilient. And I want to also ask too, being an Asian American and a combat, military veteran working in Hollywood, what has your experience been like thus far? And have you met any specific stereotypes, or do you feel like you've been well received and understood?
I was just talking to somebody about this the other day, and it wasn't so much, for me, it wasn't so much about being Asian. It was more about being a soldier and being in the military. It's like, I got to the point where I stopped working in Hollywood because I was being pigeonholed and I was being typecast, and not as the Asian guy, but like as the soldier. When I first moved out here in 2008, I was one of the few OEF, OIF combat veterans working in Hollywood. There were a shit ton of vets. There are a shit ton of vets now. When I got out here, it was mostly like Cold War era, Vietnam guys. There were writers, directors, and we had a couple of actors. Like one of my good friends, Mark Valley, West Point guy. He was a Cold War vet. But there were very few OEF, OIF vets with combat experience. And I moved out here in 2008 with a Purple Heart, and it doesn't have, nearly a decade in SOCOM. And like I became like the go-to like OEF, OIF consultant for a lot of things. But then, and I did it for a really long time because I got to work with my friends, like other vets who were working in the industry. A good friend of mine was a first group guy. Another one's a SEAL Team 5 guy. And it was fun at the beginning because I was working with my friends. We were having fun, and yeah, fucking make me the soldier here, make me a soldier there. It's fine. I was hanging out with my friends, making a lot of money. But then I started actually doing Hollywood stuff. And I'm like, oh, I don't like this, because now I'm only going out as the soldier. I'm only, I think I played a doctor one time. I was like, oh, I get to play a doctor. And it turns out it was a fucking corpsman. I was like, God damn it. I'm still, and if you look at my IMDb page, yeah, I got like 20 credits on there. There are 2 that I'm not a soldier. And it got boring for me because then I wasn't acting. Then I was just being me in a different uniform. The thing with veterans here in Hollywood is that we carry ourselves a different way. And you can definitely tell on camera and on set who actually fucking knows how to shoot, move, and communicate, and who the actors are. And that's one of the reasons I got so much work, because it's cheaper to pay a soldier to play an actor than it is to pay an actor to play a soldier. But then I got bored with it because like I'm now a soldier in everything. I actually had to cut my reel the other day. I had to put a new reel together. And I was like, Jesus Christ, almost everything I'm doing, I'm holding a weapon. So there's no diversity in my roles. There was no, there was no way to feature how I was as an actor. And I just stopped. I was like, I'm bored of this. I do stuff occasionally. Like I just did a CBS sitcom last week. But it was a big, kind of a big deal. I still play a Marine, but not a Marine in uniform. It was a Marine veteran. So yeah, I got bored of it. I have not personally experienced any of the, I've never been pigeonholed as the Asian guy in anything, but I got real tired of just being always being cast as a soldier, because then I'm not acting, then I'm just being me. So I took time off and I did stand up. I focused on stand up, I should say. I've been on tour almost nonstop for like 10 years. And occasionally I'll do a co-star here or there if it's fun and if it's a lot of money and it's, close to my house. Like I live in Studio City, or I live near Studio City. So like, if I don't have to drive over the hill or down the 405, yeah, I'll go to the audition. That's fine. Where is it? CBS? Yeah, it's fine. I'll do that. But yeah, I mean, some veteran actors are okay with that. And I get that you got to start somewhere. I've been doing this for a dozen years and I get real bored real quick. I mean, I'm a comic, man. Like I get tired of my own jokes.
Yeah.
So to do the same thing over and over again as, I mean, there was I did a fucking TV show or a web series where my character's name was Thomas Chen. Like they literally just changed two names. Like I was Sergeant First Class Thomas Chen. I'm like, oh, so you promoted me and changed two letters in my name and made me Chinese. Okay, well, that's not fun. It's not a challenge. Then it's me just fucking running battle drills over and over again in front of a camera.
Right.
That's what it became. And I was like, this is not fun. It's not challenging. And, there's a way around it. You can, make your own shit in Hollywood. I mean, people make podcasts all the time and, doing great with it. I like stand-up. The thing about acting is no matter how good of a job you did or you think you did, you're not going to know until that is cut, edited, and you got the director, you got the editor, you got the studio, you got the network, you got everybody putting their little fingers in what you did, and you don't know how it's going to come out until it comes out. Dude, I did a movie 2 years ago that came out last year, and not only was my scene cut out of the movie, they changed my character.
Wow.
And I don't show up in the movie at all. Like I'm in the credits, I'm credited in the movie, the credits roll and my name is there, but I'm not in the movie at all. And for me, when it comes to like that part of creativity, like there is so much taking out of my hands. So much of the creative control is taken out of my hands.
Right.
Stand-up comedy, I could write a joke in the car on the way to the club, get on stage and do it that night. It's either good or it's not. It's either got some promise or it doesn't. And I find out immediately. If the audience laughs, it's a good joke. If the audience doesn't, it's not a good joke. And if they kind of chuckle, maybe there's something there. And then it's on me as a creator to be able to make it something good or make it great. But when it comes to acting, unless you're writing, directing, producing, editing, starring, and doing all that shit yourself, so much of that gets taken out of your hands.
Wow. And
some people dig that. Some people like that. I don't. Like, I like the having fun part of it. I like the money part of it. I'm not going to lie. I get residual checks for shit that I forgot that I did 2 years ago. And that's cool. But yeah, creatively, like, I don't want to just play a version of me from a life that I led 20 years ago. Yeah, for the first 2 or 3 years in Hollywood, like I'm a character in Call of Duty Black Ops. Cool. Mm-hmm. That's cool. It's awesome. It's a fun thing that my nephews like talk about. But other than that, I'm playing myself when I was 18 years old, and I'm 40 now. Like there's a whole other life that I've lived. And again, all that control gets taken out of your hands unless you're doing something like a podcast or, a short film that you do yourself. But comedy, it's me. I write the joke and I go on stage and I tell it, and it works or it doesn't. Yeah. And that's, Hollywood's fine. It's fine. If I got friends who are veterans, who are actors, and they dig it. They really dig it. Acting is their thing. Cool. That's awesome for them. It's fine for me. It's fun once in a while. Like I'll miss it if I don't do it for a year or two, but then I could just go write a skit. I wrote a sketch and just filmed it in my backyard. Just like me and my bassist walked from my studio to my pull-up bar, just like wrote a funny sketch. Okay, the itch is scratched, and even with that, wrote it, shot it, put it on the internet.
Yeah.
I didn't make any money for it, but made some people laugh, and that's my job. I'm a comedian. I made some people laugh. So
yeah, and that's where your true intent is, and that's where your heart is to make people laugh. And I certainly can respect that. And just wanted to ask, since talking about comedy and entertainment, what else have you been doing as far as being involved to further support the military community?
Oh my God, what don't I do? I work extensively with the Bob Hope USO here in Los Angeles. I also work with the Association of the U.S. Army. I host a lot of their events. I am what's called a COI, Center of Influence, for the USAREC Battalion here in Los Angeles. It's a COI is typically like a civilian member of the community who may or may not have been in the military, but actively supports USAREC's mission to get people to enlist. So they're like, there's a big poster of me in Call of Duty at battalion headquarters, where the recruiters can, take their enlistees and be like, this guy, Staff Sergeant, United States Army, and I work with a charity called Guitars for Vets, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a charity that gets equipment for, musical equipment for vets who want to use music as therapy. I'm a musician. You've seen I have like fucking 40 guitars. I've lost track of how many guitars I have.
Yeah.
But I help that charity. We had a gear drive at the Laugh Factory where I work. So, people were dropping out, like Eric Clapton's bassist dropped off like fucking amplifiers and basses and shit. And he's like, here, give these to vets. I'm like, all right, cool. And the Special Operations Charity Network, which is, it's near and dear to my heart. It's a charity that raises college scholarships for the children of U.S. Special Operations personnel that were killed in combat. Like I said, my roommate was killed 19 December 2003, and he left his family without a father and a husband. So in the course of the GIs of comedy, working with them since 2012, I believe, we've raised like $50,000 to send college kids to, the kids of soft operators to college. So,
wow.
Yeah, man. I'm still doing it. Like I said, NCOs.
Yeah.
I'm just still trying to lead the way.
Still leading the way. That's right. It never leaves you. You're still serving your military community, and you're still out there representing, the military community as well. And with that being said, I just wanted to ask, what's on the horizon for you? I understand that you have your music, your band, and you're also working on a television show.
Yeah, I got booked. I got a co-star role on a CBS sitcom. I don't know if I can say the name of it yet, but put it this way. It's a CBS sitcom about the military. You can figure out what show it is. Hopefully they get picked up for another season. And my character may or may not be coming back. I was told. Yeah. So that, and I'm doing that because it's fun. Like I like being on that set. There were a bunch of vets working on that show. The consultant, a couple of the writers, one of the production people, a bunch of grips and gaffers and behind the scenes people, all vets. So they hired a lot of vets for that show. So that made me happy to work on that show with, a production that is, it's about a veteran, and and some of the episodes are, talk about real veterans issues, which like when I got cast on this show, I was like, fuck yeah. So yeah, if that comes back and I come back on that show, awesome. I'll be super happy to go work with that cast and crew again, because they were fun. And it's, it's not just some dumb thing that means nothing. It's, it's a show that really actively tells veteran stories. I know I've watched episodes and I'm like, yeah, I've said this shit. Like some of the stuff the main character has said, I'm like, I literally said these words. So yeah, there's that. I'm producing a food show on my own that I'm pitching to a couple networks. I have a bunch of bands. I got a Star Trek themed Motley Crue cover band called the Bridge Crew because I'm a nerd and I love 80s metal. Thom Tran band.
Is there anything that you don't do? You're a musician. You're into food. You're into entertainment. And acting and comedy. It's like you seem to be in everything.
I don't know, man. I just do whatever I got to do to keep going. Like
I dig it though, man. You're very multi-talented. That's for sure.
I'm just trying to keep going. I got to have a reason still. You know, the worst thing a soldier can be is missionless.
Yeah.
I know a guy named Thom. I don't know if you've heard of him. Master Sergeant, 20 plus years in special forces. He's actually a character in the new Call of Duty game. And he now runs a company called Ronin Tactical. And a Ronin was a masterless warrior, Japanese masterless warrior. He's Vietnamese, but he's been described as if I were Super Mario with the magic mushroom, that's him. And I am, I am him if I got hit by a Goomba. That's a weird way to describe that. But yeah, I've been without a master and a mission for so long. That's what comedy has become. Like, it's my mission. It's my job. It's what I got to do to keep going. So, and it's different every day. And I get bored. Like I said, I get bored. I get bored with my own jokes. I get bored with my own music. I get bored with, shit in general. I got to switch out my workout every month.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying with that, because that's one of the main reasons why I started this podcast was, I got tired of, I always felt like the only time people really spoke about veterans was when they were talking about the drunk getting hammered all the time or on drugs. And it's just like, I have so many friends out there that are so successful and they're so resilient. Not only that, but I also want to help people who are currently in the service or veterans out there that are looking for ways to level themselves up, whether it be through education, whether it be through listening to stories of other veterans like yourself who, find that self-awareness and are able to make it past the darkness to overcome a lot of the things that veterans deal with. And at the end of the day, there's no excuses. It's just like what you talked about earlier with the dark humor thing. I mean, you can find that excuse and you can just call it a day, or you can actually understand that you are an artist and that it's your job to make that relatable to a good number of folks that are in the room. And that's a very insightful perspective. And I appreciate you sharing that with me. But if Thom, if folks are interested in wishing to connect with you, what social media platforms can they follow your content?
Oh, I'm on all of them. Go to thomtran.com, THOMTRAN.com. Name is spelled with an H. Even if you go to Thom Tran spelled the regular way, I own that too. But that's not how you spell my name. I'm on, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, OnlyFans. No, I'm not on OnlyFans. I keep making that joke. I'm like, I'm going to start an OnlyFans just to say that I have it. Yeah, I'm. If you just type in my name, Thom Tran, THOMTRAN, I'm verified across the platforms, so I'm usually the first one that pops up.
Yeah, and I'll put as many as I can in the show notes of this as well. So if you're looking to follow Thom, you'll be able to look in the show notes and click on some of those different ones out there. But I really appreciate you taking the time out today, Thom, and it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It's been very refreshing. I related to a lot of the things you spoke about, including Iraq. And I really enjoyed this interview with you. And I just want to ask, is there anything else that you'd like to tell our listeners out there?
Don't be a dick. It's real simple. Like, I know we joke about it. Will Wheaton, who played, of course, Wesley Crusher on Star Trek: The Next Generation. Very simple rule. It's called the Will Wheaton rule. Don't be a dick. Like, it's not that hard. Just like, be a good person. Be good people. Like, there's all this talk, we're very, obviously a very divided country and have been for 200 plus years. Maybe more so in the last few, but just be good people. It's not just about being good Americans. It's about being good people. Mm-hmm. Be good people. And I don't mean, help old ladies across the street, open doors for, people, like, don't kick puppies, shit like that, but just don't be a dick. That's it. That's like Thom's simple rule of, like, if you can help it. Sometimes you can't help it, but in general, that's it. Wake up, be good people. And here's a piece of advice I will give you. I want to leave people. I want people to know. I was talking to some comedian friends of mine last night at the Laugh Factory. Also, laughfactory.com. I'm there all the time. Just remember, and this is especially for vets, what the guy next to you or girl next to you is doing has really no impact on your life. I train people in my gym every morning. No matter how many push-ups the dude next to me is doing, it ain't gonna make me any stronger. No matter how fast that girl is running, it's not gonna make me any faster. So being pissed about what somebody else has or doesn't have as it relates to you, just remember, it doesn't relate to you. Like, opportunities will happen. And just because somebody else gets that opportunity doesn't mean you were supposed to. You know what I mean? Like, I can do 100 push-ups, but if the dude next to me is doing 1,000 push-ups, it don't make me any stronger or any weaker. Like, you ultimately control your life and your destiny. And what you do with that is up to you. You can help influence other people, but good NCOs, it's their job. It's to lead soldiers and make them better soldiers to make them good NCO. Mm-hmm. But I can't do push-ups for my Joes. I can't pass a PT test for anybody other than me. Just like I can't get on stage and be funny for that guy. Mm-hmm. I can't be a better actor for that person. So do your thing. You do you.
Right.
Except unless doing you is being a dick. Don't be a dick.
There it is. I appreciate you being on the show today, man. And for the advice that you gave to anyone that's aspiring to be a comedian and sharing your background and where you've been. And thank you for giving me the time today, Thom. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Rock and roll.
All right, everyone out there. Thank you for listening today. This is The Morning Formation. I'm KP with Thom.
Peace.
And we're out. You've been listening to The Morning Formation podcast. I hope you found today's materials helpful and of value to your current situation. You can connect with me on Instagram at the_morning_formation_podcast, or you can connect with me via email at theformationpodcaster@gmail.com. Also, I would like to thank my partners at Act Now Education for their support. Authenticity, community, and trusted is what you can expect from all members of the Act Now Education team. You can link up with them today and learn about some new, free educational resources on their Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or at their website, actnoweducation.com. Whether today's show took you back to a nostalgic time or helped you think about tomorrow, thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you again. Stay safe and stay motivated. Warriors, fall out.